Howdy ladies and gents, my name's Jace and I am a part-time blacksmith. I drive a wagon during the day and at night I tend to be in here making other things. I mainly make tools for other blacksmiths, i.e. drifts, hammers, even axes on the odd occasion, and I do knives when the feeling takes me. In today's video we're talking about this thing here. This is the Anyang 15 kilo, well, the Anyang ST 15 kilo power hammer, meaning it's got a 15 kilo ram on it. I've had it for about a year now, and I was planning on doing an installation video and all that lot, but I never got around to it because it was a new toy. It's exciting. I've had to get this for two reasons. I had an accident at work where another driver collided with my HTV, and during the accident I've ended up with a blown disc in my neck, and I found out that a couple of discs in my neck are knackered and I really can't swing a hammer anymore. So I decided to make myself a task of selling enough hammers to buy myself one of these. I bought it from Victory Tools Co. Norfolk, i.e. Fire and Forge, from Nigel Barnett. Nice chap if you speak to him. Tell you everything about the hammers and he'll also help you out. This is basically me giving you a review of the hammer. There's only one thing wrong with it that I found, and it's nothing to do with Nige, and it's all to do with the manufacturing of this oiler on the side here. We'll have a closer look at it in a minute. But this helps me out an awful lot. When you buy the hammer off Nige, it'll come as is on a metal crate made of C-channel, which is quite big. You can cut it up and make some stuff out of it, which I'm planning on making a trailer out of it. Just an idea for people to do. You will get this teeny tiny little blue box right here. It's a good little thing to get with it because it holds a couple of things. First off, when you open it, you'll get this. I want to call it a grease gun, but it holds grease, but it does not gun. It's a waste of time. You'd be better off spending your money on something else. I think that's the second grievance about it. You're better off buying yourself something along the lines of this, and get it so it's got one of these grabby claws on the end, so you can grab hold of the grease nipple or the grease zerk if you're American, and then that's just a single-handed one. But we'll get around to that in a minute. I am planning on doing a maintenance video of the hammers in this box, and then you'll come with two flat dies on the hammer, and then in the box you'll receive these. You'll get probably one or the other with this. You'll either get these ones, which are, well, they call them fullering dies, the drawing dies, or with the bigger hammers, the 25 kilo plus, you might end up with a die that's got a big radius like that, which heavy fullering dies, which is they are good, but they are quite aggressive, and you're swapping out dies every 2 minutes. But I'll get into that in a minute. Also, you get underneath. So these are a set of rings for the stuffing box and piston as well, I believe. Not opened them because, according to Nige, he doesn't really know why they give you these because you're never really going to need them. And inside you'll also get your instruction manuals and our inspection dates, who inspected the hammer and that. They're okay. English is a bit broken, but you can understand it. It's not like a lot of them where you really can't understand them. Right, let's put this all away. And shall give you a little walk around the hammer. Right, starting on this side of the hammer, this is where all your treadle controls is, where the air valves are. You also get a lever valve that you're probably never actually going to use. Instead of using your foot, you can use this. You're probably never going to use it. The only other time you'll use it, if you have the 25 kilo plus, is for the hold down, so that the ram will lower down and hold your workpiece. The 15 kilos do not come with it, unfortunately. All this does Let's open the valves, so all the air's running through and going straight out the exhaust on the other side, that I'll show you. And it'll drop this hammer round down. But, as I said on the 15s, it doesn't work. It'll snap back in place after. And then with the foot control, you can see it moving. There's not really much to talk about on this side of the hammer. But if we move down, you can see there's an emergency stop button on them. And you've got this little tray that runs, that I was sitting on before, that runs round. Nige will, if you look at Nigel's videos, he'll tell you that he removes them because he doesn't like them because they're in the way. I don't mind it actually because it holds a lot of tooling. Also with these hammers, when you buy them, if you don't buy them off anyone else, this little case here will not be there. This little shelf with all this ST and AY on it, AA, speaking good English, Jace, won't be on it, and your motor will be exposed. Nige, if you speak to him, he'll tell you a story about how he almost murdered someone and buried them after an apprentice dropped a big bar of steel on the motor on the back end of one of his hammers once and cracked all the casing and knackered it. So he took it upon himself to weld on this extra little bit to protect. It's also a good shelf to put your tooling on. It has got a lip all the way around to put your toolbox on. Not that you'll use it because it's the back end of the hammer and you'll forget about stuff. It'll be one of them areas that you put stuff, lose it forever, and then finally realise where it is about a year later when you don't need it anymore. This plate here has a diagram of the hammer, and it shows you all the inspection plates here, which are on the other side. There is an inspection plate here that you can take off, but that means taking all the linkage out, then it's too much of a ball ache to do. And this will tell you what goes where, what grease that you need for which part, and how often that you should be doing it. So yeah, that's all I can do. Right, on this side of the hammer, you have all your oiler system. This is your exhaust. This is a funky exhaust that Nige puts on. When it comes from factory, it will have just a piece of round pipe there, and the air will blow out to the side, and it does smell a bit oily. It does smell a bit oily. Sorry, I haven't got the camera in place. Yeah, this bit here. But what Nige does, he puts on this cherry bomb exhaust, chromed looking thing to fire the air out the back. If you so wish, you can also put a piece of rubber pipe on it and then lead it out of your forge so you're not getting that oily air kicking around. On this side, this is where your inspection plates are for your greasing and that lot. Behind this one, if you take it off, it'll be for the main bearing for your pump end. So take this off and you'll see the cap bearing on the ends, and then there's a grease circle, grease nipple, depending on what part of the world you're from, what you call it. Behind there, that you put some grease in once every 3 months, I think it says, but it's entirely up to you. Grease and oil is cheap, power hammers ain't, so I do mine quite often. And then just to the left of this one, there's another little small round one that you just loosen the bottom one off and take the top one fully out, and it'll spin round, which will do your main bearing for your crank. You'll notice this. This is where all the oil from this oiler will come up into the chamber, and eventually it'll drain back down to the bottom of the hammer. This is just a little tap to run it off. All I do is stick a piece of pipe on the end and then run it down into a bucket, open the tap and just let it drip away to drain it off. Once you're done, just close it so it doesn't drip all over the floor. You can leave the pipe on if you so wish. This oiler, when I first got it, I was having troubles with it not picking up oil, like the hammer wasn't sucking it up through the pipe. Let me just adjust that a bit more. Sack the cameraman. Not that the light's any good, there is a pipe here that leads from the oiler reservoir up through this one-way valve and into the top of the hammer where it oils this side of the hammer, and then when it shoves air into the front side of the hammer, it'll shove the oil in with it. Right, this oiler, it is absolute rubbish. I've struggled God knows how many times with it. I've even took it apart, but I spoke to Nige and he suggested, because he's had the trouble with some of his older hammers and some of the newer ones, he says the 15 kilos, because they're such a small hammer, the back pressure on the backstroke to draw it through isn't enough.
So you need to thin the oil down a bit with a bit of thinners. Well, not thinners, I use white spirits to thin mine down. Or you can use whatever you want. Anything just to thin the oil slightly to a consistency of like air tool oil. What's supposed to happen is this glass tube up here is not supposed to have oil in it constantly. It's supposed to drip through in the little copper pipe that you can't see in there anymore because it's full of oil, and then you go off your drips per minute, or drips every 8 seconds I think it is. If you read the manual it will say. But I can't see that anymore because it's spun and it's filled up. This pump doesn't work anymore, so I've given up with it completely. What I do is I open up the tap, and then what I showed you on the other side with the clamp down feature, if you open that up it will cycle enough air through it to draw the oil into the hammer, and then it works anyway. It's a bad design, because when I took this part previously, I've taken this little pump out, and when you pull it all apart and look inside of it, the machining quality on it isn't the best. All they've done is drilled a hole. They haven't reamed it, and they haven't done anything to clean it up. They've just, as I said, drilled it. The plunger that goes in it, it's not exactly to a tolerance fit. The O-rings that go on it don't exactly seal properly, and it's useless. At a later date I will be updating this and putting a different oiler system on it, and I'm going to be putting it on the back over here, and I will do a later video on it, and it's going to be a belt driven oiler that's going to run off the flywheel, and I'm going to get rid of all this and go from there. I'll also be, that is the only grievance that I have with it, other than the little stupid grease gun that comes with it. Yeah, it works, but it's not 100%. Right, let's move around to the front of the hammer and we'll have a look at the ram and the sow block. Right, this part's the business end of the hammer, obviously. This is the dies where they meet together and thump your work together. This is a 3-piece design, which is better than the Vulcan anvils, because this bottom sow block is a 1-piece design, and sometimes you have trouble lining the dies up, because these ones match perfectly front to back and left to right. And you can make all your adjustments in this sow block, in this 3-piece. Basically what it is if you've got a bottom plate with notches in the bolt holes, so you can twist this round into the correct position. You've also got this part that you can move forward and backwards to line it up forward and backwards. This one obviously does your left and right. And then you've got your tapered, hardened pins to hold it in at the bottom here. Also, this ram does not disappear back up into the cylinder like they used to do on the older Anyang models. It is now hanging down, so it's easier to change your dies. So you can change your dies out whilst it's still running, and you don't have to drop them down, lift the ram up, pull the die out, put the new die in, and then go on and so on and so forth. You can just whack it in there and then get it done. As I said, they're held in with these tapered pins, hardened tapered pins. Just quickly, whilst I've got you on these flat dies, they do have holes in them, and they do come all the way through. And when you change these dies, it does take a while to put these new ones in. They are a bit of a pain. So you can make what's known as saddle tools. What I've made is these sort of tools. All it is a saddle that sits over this die and gets bolted together and clamps on. So now I've got an aggressive fuller-in die. These ones I use for drawing out the eyes on hammers, and they will be in a later video. I'll show you the full process of me using this for making a hammer. These ones I use for setting the fuller lines in a hammer, as in the trough lines. Should put that grab something. For setting the trough lines, like here, these fit perfectly in there, and then you can work your way around. Either round them off or put some nice fancy arms on them. You can make more. You get ones like this that I've made. Oops, sorry, get you on camera. This is for making the same hammer. For making the fuller end of the hammer on. You only need one of them to do it. I have two types of these. This one's at 45, it's a bit steep, and a 30, which is this one, it's slightly less steep, and it works a lot better. I said you all hold them on with these bolts that you just pass through, and then bolt and clamp the saddle tool on. Right, what I'm going to do now is back you up, and you can hear the forge in the background. It's heating up a piece of 3/4 inch, so I'll go through the initial fire up, but I'll show you all the electrics that come with it as well. Coming from the back of the hammer, you've got that top lead that runs round to the other side that goes to the emergency stop, and you've got that bottom one that runs up to this high quality German switch. Basically just an on-off switch, and then your main power comes in through this other one, and it goes into a 16 amp plug. The 15 kilos will run off 16 amp power from the factory. So, well, you can run them off a 13 amp plug if you so wish, but you might get a bit hot. So you're better off running off a 16 amp plug. Have your electrician put one in, or if you're any good, do it yourself. I'm not telling you to do it, and do not hold me responsible if you zap yourself. But I know the 25s plus run off 3-phase power. If you order a hammer off Nige, you can also get him to put a single phase motor on it for you. Right, what we're going to do now is I'm going to grab that hot piece of steel, and we're going to do some squishing after I turn the hammer on, obviously. Surprisingly, these hammers are really quiet when you turn them on. I said you can hear me talking over it, obviously. These hammers, let's move you back a bit. With these hammers here, this part upwards is your hammer. This part's a base, and it's hollow. If you speak to Nige, he'll tell you some ways that you can sort it. He'll suggest some people drill and tap the bottom and put a tap on it so they can fill the bottom full of water, so then they can drain it. Some people fill it with sand. But I don't know how you get in there. I am going to be doing it, and I need to speak to Nige first about it, but I'm thinking that this whole sal block will come off, and I can take it out and then fill the base however I want. Not exactly sure if you can, but if not, all it is 4 bolts to hold it. Make sure you've got someone there with you. You'll have to disconnect all your linkage for your treadle, and then just twist it to one side and then fill the bottom with whatever you want. Nigel also suggested expanding foam, because you'll hear in a minute it does make a good thud and an echo, a hollow thud in the bottom of the base. Right, let's fire up the hammer. I have had this hammer warming up beforehand, and it is good practice to leave your hammer running for a good 10 minutes to warm up before you start working on it. I'll leave you zoomed out a fair way so you can see it to start with, but then I'll move you around after and get you a close up from the side, and you can see exactly what's going on. Right, here we go, first heat on this piece. It's a dull orange, it's not as bright and hot as it looks. Trick photography. That's it, squash flat with a couple of blows from the 15 kilo. If any of you are doubting the weight of the hammer, well, yeah, that's 3/4 inch, so what, 20 odd mil. And it's done that to it. Now I'll just quickly draw a taper out on this. There, as you can see, we're locking it in. You can see, drawn out a lovely taper, relatively quick, with this tiny little hammer. Right then, so in conclusion about the Anyang 15 kilo power hammer ST. Don't ask me what the deal is between Anyang HF and the ST. They're basically clones of themselves. They're exactly the same thing. But Nige swears by the STs and I'm swearing by them as well. So will a lot of other people who actually have them. I said the only problem I have with mine is the oiling system. Yeah, it does work, it's just the machining quality on the plunger to prime the system, because normally that plunger you'd pump it a couple of times until you get oil into the hammer and then start the hammer. But as I said, I just lift that lever and it'll pump round. I will do a few more videos to do with it. I'll go into more detail about the saddle tooling and how I make them, and I'll show you that. And I'll also be doing a maintenance video on the hammer, which needs to be done again because it's, to be honest, it's been a while. If you have any questions about the hammers and that lot, feel free to ask. I'll happily tell you anything about them and show you. I'll put Nigel's forged internet link, whatever you want to call it, website, that's it, in the link, as well as my Etsy for my hammers. And you can go there and look at the prices. I can't remember what the prices are on them at the moment, but they're not cheap. I think they start around £5,000 and that's delivered. Worth every penny to do with my neck. As I said, I can't even pick up a £3 hammer anymore. When I'm driving a drift into a hammer eye to drift it out, I've got 3 good swings of the hammer and then I've got to put it down because I can't physically do any more. My right arm just stops working. As you can tell, I'm a bit weird, twisting my head and everything. But this thing has saved me from giving up what I enjoy and what I love doing. And hopefully, if someone's in the same boat as me, this might be an idea for them to get one if they want to carry on, if they've got the space and not too many neighbours, because it's not exactly quiet, as you know. But yeah, once I figure out how to put some stuff in the bottom, it should quieten it up a bit, hopefully. And I'm quite lucky because I'm in the middle of nowhere and no one can hear you scream up here, so I can make as much noise as I like. And I'll be doing another tour of me forge when I finally get around to tidying it up. Some of the stickers on here are some products that I bought off certain people, and I'll be going into detail with them, like my belt grinder as well. I'll be showing you that and who I bought it off, how good it is after I've had it for about 4 months, and the things I've done to upgrade it for knife making and hammer making. And yeah, we'll be going from there. I'll also show you me 10-ton forge press that I fabricobbled out of a 10-ton long splitter. But anyway, hopefully this helps someone, and thanks for watching.